love and respect for the two of you at Umami Mart.
And to the two of you.
Doubt it, but thanks anyway.
Maybe. Well, thank you everybody for being here. And I hope that you all have a cold beverage here. Cheers to Thursday, almost Friday. I'm drinking the Shochu highball using the St. George, California Shochu. The recipe was created by former bar manager of Ramen Shop, who's here with us actually tonight, joining live, Chris Lane, and I'll put the
Chris Lane stinks.
I'll put the recipe in the chat, but it's a really delicious, easy recipe of the California Shochu with tonic and club soda, so it's a sonic. Anyway, we're so excited for our event with our hometown distillery, located right beyond the tunnel in Alameda, St. George. Thank you for being here. Lance Winters is the master distiller and owner of St. George, and Dave Smith is the head distiller, and we're so excited to have
and co-owner too.
And co-owner, awesome. And when we were just a blog in 2010, we had a meetup called, we used to call them Umami Ventures, where we would meet up with other blog readers for Umami Mart. And so we met up at St. George Distillery. So that was, gosh, that was 11 years ago now. And yeah, it's a gorgeous space, and it's with a very fun and lively tour. And there's a tasting at the end. And hopefully when these COVID times are over, we can all meet there and drink together. And they have awesome pop-ups, and it's just a gorgeous view there, right there on the bay. Hope you've all been there. And then since then, Lance has invited us over the years to kind of taste his private experiments, like his soy sauces and umeshu, and he's always tinkering with Japanese ingredients. And he's quite the connoisseur. And the California Shochu and Baller were excited to have this event because they're both inspired by Japanese drinks. And so I'll pass it over to Lance and Dave, who will talk about the spirits and the space and the distillery. And thanks for being here, everybody.
Yeah, and I thank you, both Keiko and Yoko. Definitely appreciate being able to be on your show. And thank you everybody out there in Zoom land for coming to say hello and spend a little bit of time with us. We are here at St. George Spirits, and we're currently housed in an old Naval Air Station hangar. This place was built in 1941 as part of the war effort, and was evacuated by the military close to 25 years ago. We moved in here, when was that, Dave?
About 16 years ago.
16 years ago. There are probably a few of you who are out there watching this that were just born when we were doing this. Probably a lot of 16-year-old drinkers out there. But we moved in here as a part of our lengthy history. St. George has been around for 40 years. We were established first in a tiny little shack that would fit into one of the concrete squares out here. These are 20 by 20 foot squares. St. George was that tiny when we first started. We were started by, as many wonderful things in this country are started by, an immigrant. A gentleman by the name of Jörg Rupf came here from Germany and brought some of his traditions of Germany in making fruit brandies to the United States. And those fruit brandies were the sorts of things that people would consume after dinner. And nobody was drinking them here. But because they're such a beautiful thing to make, he continued to make them. It's one of the things that I think makes what we do kind of an art form. You're not trying to create a product that there's already an audience for. You're trying to create a product that grooms and educates and cultivates an audience slowly. That's an ethos that's been passed down to us by Jörg over all those years. During those years, we've gone through a lot of different iterations, from starting with just fruit brandy to jumping into making single malt whiskey.
That was 25 years ago when you started here at St. George.
That's exactly right. Thanks, Dave. So yeah, 25 years ago, I walked through the door with a bottle of homemade whiskey, looking for a job, and I haven't left since. Later on in that time, we ended up making Hangar One vodka that we ran with for about 10 or 11 years. And then after we sold that brand, we started all of our gins and basically just been having a lot of fun here. Is there anything in that brief history that I've missed other than you showing up 16 years ago?
So yeah, we had been in the space for about 5 or 6 months when I showed up here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. One of these days, you guys come over. I'll tell you the story about hiring Dave, but it's too lengthy for this format.
The best mistake you've ever made.
It really is. We should both blush when we say that. But yeah, yeah. So anything?
No, that covers it really well. I think over the years, the key ingredient there, and one of the things I always want to express is one, thank you again for taking the time to spend some time with us to learn about not only what we're making with Shochu, with some of our single malt programs, specifically the baller, but to hear us express why we make these things. And I think that's part of the ethos that Jorg laid down, and some of that sense of trying to make things that don't exist anywhere else. And what that comes down to is our point of view. It's a form of self-expression that we can't share in any other way than in spirits.
And that why is vitally important. And with that delicious segue that Dave just served us, we'll talk about the birth of the shochu. When God, probably 7 years ago, our friends at the Ramen Shop were just opening in the Ramen Shop, and we went to their restaurant and were blown away by it. It was a lot of fun. There's so much energy, so much creative interpretation. And they grabbed the concept of a classic ramen shop, but flipped it into a California context. And that was inspiring for us. And we said to Sam and Rayneel and JJ, hey, you guys, is there anything that we can do that we can contribute to your program? Because we love this. We want to be a part of your club. We want to play in your clubhouse. And they weren't sure, so we started playing around, and we started looking at playing at making shochu. We did some shochus with rice. We did some shochu with sweet potato, and after a few test batches we put in front of those guys, they said we'd really, really love to have the rice shochu. And so we figured out exactly what we wanted, and then started working with Takara Sake in Berkeley to be able to source raw material from them. They're using Calrose rice, all from the Sacramento Valley, and that's what we utilize. We distill that to make our shochu. Couple of things that set it apart. One, the fact that we're using the sake leaves, the kasu from the sake, to be able to make this. So the flavor is very, very intense. There's a lot more Koji that puts its thumbprint on the flavor and aroma profile of this stuff. The other thing that sets it apart from more traditional shochu is the fact that we're distilling to a higher percentage. We're going to 40% ethanol in this, well outside of the standards for a traditional shochu, but also something that we think is a little bit more at home in a cocktail. In the culture here, cocktails tend to be a little bit more spirit forward. And when you've got a spirit that's got great characteristics, you want to be able to make sure that those get delivered to the glass. And in the case of the shochu, the bulk of the character ends up coming from the Koji and what Koji gives us, because if you're not familiar with it, I have a feeling you all are, because you're very hyper educated umami mart customers. Just in case though, Koji is essentially a fungus. It's like a mushroom, and its spores inoculate the rice, and those spores send out what are called mycelium, which is like a root that goes into the rice, and it creates enzymes that will break down the starches in that rice into simple sugars so that it can feed off of those. Once it starts that process, you take that, mix it with water and yeast, and the enzymes continue breaking down the starches, and the yeast starts to consume the sugars that are created. That's all great. That's all well and good, because you need to create alcohol to be able to distill something. But what's the really magical part of that whole thing is that the Koji smells and tastes like this combination of cashews and pistachios and dried cocoa. And they're all things that can go either to the sweet side or the savory side. So you've got a lot more options, a lot more directions that you can go with a cocktail with the shochu.
One of the things I love most about that entire concept, you've got some background in brewing. I have a little bit of background in winemaking, And I'd work with winemakers who would use not just one strain of yeast, they'd use multiple strains of yeast because they wanted to get those different aromatic profiles or flavor profiles as the yeast contribute to the raw ingredients. In that case, grapes, it's wine. But with the Shochu, we've got the Koji actually contributing one dimension of flavor and ingredients. And you've got yeast who are going to contribute a whole nother layer to it. It makes something that's much more complex and dynamic for it. It's got a lot of character. It's almost aggressive in its character, which is something I love about it.
Yeah, I like spirits that don't hide well in cocktails. And this one, when you mix it into a cocktail, you know that it's there.
I've never heard Chris Lane say, "You're going to love my cocktails. You can't taste the alcohol in them." That's not a term in his vocabulary.
No, it's not. But the one thing that is accurate there is you will always love Chris Lane's cocktails because the man is a genius.
Well, he's just a saint.
And he's cute as a bug.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so that is the Shochu in a nutshell. In a nutshell. So after that, we'd pop into Ramen Shop from time to time, meaning like 3 times a week, and eat these really delicious bowls of tonkatsu ramen, very rich porky broth. And we found that the thing that we kept going to as a cocktail to balance that out was a highball. And while the Shochu makes a nice highball, didn't have what it needed to really cut through that rich broth. And so what we started drinking, what, Dave?
It was hibiki highballs.
We started drinking hibiki highballs, and that was, I believe, the shop highball at the time was made with hibiki, and it was delicious and it was wonderful, but it wasn't made with our whiskey, and we were kind of bummed about that.
Well, I mean, the folks at Ramen Shop these are friends who are like family. I mean, my wife worked there at one time. Your son worked there at one time. It's the kind of place where you go and have these meals, and there's this great intimacy to having a meal with friends and family, and it's one of the true joys of sharing that experience. There's the only thing better than that, in my view, is when you make a meal for your friends and family, when you see them enjoy your efforts, and it's so much more intimate. And I think we both had almost a sense of guilt because we're there, and this is sort of everything is right with the world. We're there in the ramen shop and enjoying these bowls of ramen. We're with friends who are like family, and family who are like friends. And we haven't done enough to contribute to this. We haven't really.
How often do you go to a restaurant and feel guilty that you're not contributing enough while you're there? It's a statement of how magical their service is and how magical what they do is. That said, we whined about it for a little while, but then we came back to the distillery and started searching through our whiskey barrels. In addition to our regular lot series of single malt, we lay down experimental batches from time to time with different grain bills. And so as we started going through those, our regular single malt didn't work for a highball. It's far too rich, and you don't balance the richness of a bowl of pork broth with rich whiskey. It doesn't work. You need to counterpoint it.
We tried that.
We tried. Yeah. Don't get us wrong. So we started looking for some of the barrels that we had that had leaner profiles. And we found a few barrels that had whiskey that was made with 2-row pale malted barley and Munich malt. The pale barley has a very lean profile, contributes mostly fermentable content. The Munich malt contributes a little toast level, which gives you a little bit more of the malt aromatics and flavors, but not a lot. It's not overwhelming. Found some barrels that were like that. They were really lovely, still weren't quite right. We had done some experimentation with different types of charcoal filtration and found one form working with with charcoal that was made from maple hardwood. As we ran whiskeys through that, instead of it taking character away, which is typically what you expect from charcoal, it actually added this really beautiful, sharp, sweet smoke. And so we took some of that whiskey and ran it through that charcoal and said, this is it. This is fantastic. And that's where the baller was born. The idea came from all that. That's how we put it together. And we had batches that we got ready. We were ready to bottle it up. And in the meantime, we had, I think Sylvan from Rintaro got us maybe 20 pounds or so of ume fruit. And we had brought that ume fruit in and made a small batch of umeshu from our shochu.
Wait, what's ume fruit?
everybody out there knows what ume fruit is. Don't even get me started. Okay, ume fruit. It's a small Japanese stone fruit that is traditionally used to make a liqueur. You'll hear people talk about it as plum wine. It's not really a wine because it's an infusion process by which it's made. But you infuse ume fruit, traditionally green, unripe ume fruit, for a lot more acidity, and then rock sugar into high-proof spirit, traditionally shochu. And we started making it. We made a small batch of that. We thoroughly enjoyed it. We thought it was great. The morning, maybe a couple mornings before we were supposed to bottle, I came in and I poured a little umeshu into the bottom of a glass, threw it out, and then poured some of the baller that we were ready to bottle into that glass. And I smelled it and tasted it, and I said, with nobody in the room, I said, "Oh my God, this is amazing. This is delicious." And I did it again, and I brought it to Dave, and I don't know if there are any kids watching, so I won't say what Dave said, but he got really angry.
I used a swear word.
He used a swear word, a bad word, and language, people. He was angry because he knew that that was the way that we had to do it, and that the bottling that we had scheduled for a couple of days later was going to have to be put off by about 18 months because we'd have to get enough ume fruit to make a big batch of umeshu, and then we'd have to put it into barrel and condition the barrel, and then we'd have to pull it out and then put the whiskey into the barrel and then pull it out and be ready again.
To put that into context, we had labels printed, we had containers of glass. I mean, we were ready to go with that first initial sort of bottling. And once the concept was out there, just automatically it was just there was a thumbprint. It was something that was really just genuinely expressive, and it was that nth degree more. And as soon as the idea was out there, I was angry, because it was the only path forward. It was the only way to do it once the concept was sort of out in the world. And there was no other way. There was no going back at that point. So I was excited, but I also knew that the accountants, that the warehouse, everyone was going to be very angry.
We took the schedule off by a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, but again, to put a fine point on what you're saying, that once you know the right way to do something, if you do it the wrong way, you can't sleep with yourself after that. It's not a good thing. So,
well, I mean, it comes down to that idea of, what does craft mean or anything like that. Is it 5 cases of something? Is it 50 cases, 500, 5,000? I think it comes down to that ethos, that basically the why you do this, why you make something, and the technique you're going to use to get to that place.
Yeah, and that next level with the umeshu finish is one that expressed what we were about, and after on this, so much better. And if you find a better way to express yourself, that's the way that you do it. So that's what we did. Do you guys want to see what a barrel of umeshu looks like? We can walk over to a barrel. It pretty much looks like all the rest of these barrels, but we'll pull some out of it so that you can see it. So please follow us. We're walking past the stills. We're walking past some tanks. Tank, absinthe infusion tank. Back into the barrel area. Dave was talking numbers for a second about you can sell 5 cases, you can sell 50 cases, etc. The exciting thing about this was when we first put this together, the whole idea was this is just going to be a Ramen Shop exclusive, and we were thinking 50 cases a year, and I think that's what we had bottled up for the first year. And as we started rolling through it, and people started rolling through Ramen Shop and tasting it, they said, "Why can't I have some of this? Why can't we have this in our restaurant, in our bar?" And so we grew it to 500 cases. And had it in California, throughout California, and then other states wanted it. We've grown to the point now where it's 6,000 cases a year, which is a substantial thing for something that's basically a love letter that we pen to a bunch of good friends. It's really making the rounds now. So here we are. Got these two. There are a bunch more in the back, but we pulled these two out just so that they were easier to access. Oh, that's perfect. Thanks, Dave. We can be COVID safe with this one. Yeah.
Lance, can I ask how long the umeshu rests in there before you take it out and you put that whiskey in it?
So at least 6 months. What we tend to do is it'll go into a barrel, for at least 6 months, and then it gets pulled out of that barrel, gets mingled with. We do sort of a Solera system where we'll pull that out, then it'll get mixed with the following year's production of umeshu. And then all that will go together and go into more barrels so that we've got more and more barrels available to be able to rest the baller in.
And primarily, we're trying to use very relatively neutral barrels for the umeshu part of this, because ultimately we're not chasing down barrel-aged umeshu in terms of the oak or tannins or vanillins or any of those qualities. Who are you again?
Yeah, right.
But we don't want to over oak the umeshu. The point of the umeshu is to create this really expressive liqueur that's making Lance very happy right now.
It's like drinking the most beautiful perfume that you've ever smelled. And I know we've all tasted perfume, and it's not exactly good, but this is tasting exactly the way that you would want perfume to taste. The nose has this really beautiful, bright apricot sort of smell to it. You get a touch of that shochu funk behind it, which balances it out. The reason that we were thinking that this would work for a barrel finish for a whiskey is that already there are whiskeys that are aged in sherry casks, and there are three major flavor contributions that come from that sherry: sweetness, acidity, and a little bit of nuttiness. The sweetness comes from the fact that there are a lot of sweet cherries out there. The acidity comes from the natural acidity in the wine. And then the nuttiness comes from slow oxidation under the influence of floor yeast in that sherry. Umeshu gives those three things as well. The sweetness comes from the fruit as well as the rock sugar that takes part in the infusion. The tartness comes from the natural acidity of the fruit. And then the nuttiness comes from the fact that we're extracting characteristics from the pit, and it gets this really, really beautiful almond note to it. I really wish that there was a way that you could taste this right now, because you'd see how it gives some really, really beautiful backbone. There's almost like a lychee fruit contribution that comes into play with the baller.
There's always like it reminds me of like that guava, some tangerine, kind of those qualities that are there. And then you've got all of that there's that mushroom kind of quality and that earthy undertone. And then that nuttiness, as you said, the sherry quality. That's sort of it's almost like mapley in that sense.
Yeah. And when did you, when is that from? Last year?
This one's from 2020. This is from last year. When the first batch that we got, what did we get, Dave? Was it 1,000 pounds that first time?
First time,
less than that?
First time was 500 pounds.
Okay.
And I remember, it was 500 pounds for that first batch. We did that for maybe 2 years.
Okay. And that first batch, we had 8 people de-stemming.
It was 4. I think there were 4 of us for 4.5 days. So 8-hour days, 4.5 days.
So 16 people days of 8 hours each. So that's 128 person hours.
Sitting on buckets with I think we had chopsticks and skewers trying to de-stem each individual fruit.
Yeah, and it's important to de-stem the ume fruit because the stems have really, really harsh tannins that have a harder time dying away than a lot of other tannins, the tannins that you'd find in the skin. And so they have to be removed before they go into the high proof, or else the high proof is going to leach those tannins out and make something that's undrinkably bitter. When you're looking for something that's really soft and beautiful and perfumed and acidic, you're not looking for those tannins.
And naturally, I'm getting a lot of comments. When will you bottle this? And can we have it at Umami Mart?
I knew that people were going to ask that. So I conveniently scheduled a dentist appointment for right now. I got to go. I'm kidding.
No, he's kidding. Never is the answer.
Yeah, no, that the answer is I'd really hope to be able to do it before the end of this year. The tough part is being able to, we want to put together the appropriate package for it. We want something that pays homage to Baller. And so we've got a team working on that right now. And we're excited to do it. And when it's out, of course you'll have some at Umami Mart if you'll have us. We'd be super excited to have it there. Remind me, we've tasted this with you here, haven't we?
Yes, many years ago. Yoko, we have, right?
Yes, yeah, we have. I think it was probably 2014 or so. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I think my hope is that we've gotten better at it even. And the other fun thing that we've done is since we've been able to work with these California growers of ume fruit, not only have we grabbed the traditional regular ume, we found some nanko, which is a pink ume fruit, and we're playing with that both in umeshu, and we're going to drop a bomb right here. My PR team is going to get really mad at me. My hope is Ellie's not logged on. Do you know if Ellie's logged on for this?
I don't see her. I don't see her. No.
Okay, good. We're safe. Nobody talk to my wife. Okay. She's really nice, so it's going to be tough for you to not to talk to her. But anyway, yeah, we've also been doing some ume gin, which is really exciting.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's about 3 years of experimentation now, maybe almost 4.
Yeah.
It's been a long sort of slow burn with each harvest. We tried to peel some off just for this sort of concept.
Yeah, so that's been really exciting too. So that'll probably be a little farther off than the regular umeshu. But again, thinking about the concept of slow gin and reimagining it, the slow fruit is actually a very tiny stone fruit, and they're called slow berries, but they're not really berries, and they do contribute a lot of sweetness and richness to a gin, but having a gin that has built-in acidity and balance like this is pretty crazy, and it can make for some delicious cocktails. So we're very excited to be able to introduce that as well.
Do you use one of your gins, or is it?
Right now, we've been using the Botanivore gin in that. It's the one that seemed like the best fit for it. What ultimately we'd like to do is shape a gin specifically to be able to have the ume fruit go into it. I'm thinking something that has some maybe yuzu, sudachi, and shiso, and a couple other things in there that we're still working on. But yeah, something that would be really different and a lot of fun.
Yeah, Yoko and I were just talking today because we made umeshu maybe 2 years ago now with Roku gin, which is the Suntory gin. And it was really weird last year when I tasted it. But Yoko said she tasted it just like last week, and she said it was very interesting and good. So I think that using gin for umeshu is always, we get customers all the time asking, is there an alternative to just, cheap shochu? And we do suggest the gin for something, very unique and different.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I liked the higher alcohol content of the gin really brought out some different elements of the ume versus the 24% shochu that we were using.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, if you're using 24% shochu, you're going to have a really hard time extracting any of the characteristic from the pit. It gets so watered down at that point. By the time it penetrates into the pit, it doesn't have enough alcohol to be able to start extracting that almond character from the pit. And I think at the other side of that, you're borderline biologically unstable in that product because the alcohol content's pretty low,
and it's going to draw the water out of the.
It's going to draw the water out of the fruit, yeah. And so your alcohol content is going to come way below 24%. I'd be surprised if you weren't hitting closer to 10 to 12 by the time the infusion's done. So yeah, that's a thing to watch out for there.
And for your umeshu, you're using your California shochu?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have many comments actually here. Could we form a coalition that purchases a cask of the umeshu? And you want to join on that coalition?
Yes, you can. But what you'd have to do first is form a coalition that would get California state laws changed that would allow that sort of thing to take place. It's our laws here in the state of California. The state actually governs how beer, wine, and spirits are sold in the state, and they don't allow private individuals to be able to purchase a cask. Even if Umami Mart purchased a cask, you'd instead be purchasing the equivalent volume in bottles that would come from that cask. But yeah, you could totally form a coalition to do that. We're still going to have to wait until we've got the appropriate packaging for it. But again, that's something that we can talk about. I'm happy.
Kristen, one of our Sakigumi members, says she'll call Gavin, and so will JC. So we'll get we'll get Newsome. We'll get on him.
Okay, there are several committees that you're going to have to jump through first. If it's a good and bad thing that we don't just have a single benevolent overlord in the state of California, but we do have this horrible system. I don't know if you guys remember Schoolhouse Rock, but I'm just a bill. That whole thing still applies to the state of California as well as the federal system for making laws, where it has to go through committees and it has to go through various committees, and then after committees, it goes to the state assembly and then the state senate before it gets to the governor.
But it wouldn't hurt to put Gavin in the coalition.
It really it might and it might not. It really depends on if he's got any enemies on the committees.
I can't imagine that he has any enemies.
That's true. He's a swell guy and he's got beautiful hair.
He does.
Yeah. So yeah.
And let me ask you about the umeshu that you would eventually want to bottle. Would you be doing the Solera method for that too? So you're blending or from different years, or?
Yeah,
probably.
Dave says probably, and I tend to agree with him. I think that the character that comes through from that Solera system is much better. It ends up being much more complex. You still have the brightness of the youthful umeshu, but then you've got a little bit more depth of the stuff that's been in the barrel for longer.
It's actually a really good question, just in terms of there's an interesting concept there of like the idea of almost like vintage umeshu, which would be really fascinating, but we want to make sure that's more than just fascinating. It's got to actually have some intentionality to it.
Yeah, there's got to be a reason for it to exist.
Yeah.
I think this bee passed out. Yeah. Just drinking too much umeshu. No, seriously, it's right here. It's I'm gonna move that. I'm gonna let it sleep behind the barrel now. So anyway, so
that's not honey.
Yeah, it turns out. I think unless there are more questions about this specific barrel, we're probably gonna go make ourselves a couple of highballs and let you all watch, because there's nothing more exciting than watching distillers drink highballs. So
thank you so much for showing that to us.
Oh, hell yeah, we're happy to. Pleasure.
Of course.
And I'm sorry if you already mentioned this, but how many barrels are you making now of umeshu for the baller?
Wow, we talked about this thoroughly. There was no math involved today.
It's a lot. I don't know if we actually have an accurate count right now, but what are we close to, Dave?
Man, it's under 100. So it's well under 100 at this point that we've built up over the years. But we started out with 500 pounds of ume fruit. If all goes as planned for this year's harvest, I think we're going to have about 12,000 pounds of ume fruit show up. So we've been working hard to grow the entire program, because ultimately all this, it's not only for the umeshu, but it's for the gin project, and then it's also for baller. And we've seen such an amazing response to baller out in the market. We want to be able to actually make more of it to share with more people.
Yeah, and that'll remain our focus, but we will make sure that we get umeshu out, and our priority will, as always, be California, but we do want to make sure that we get some out to share with others as well. And of course, as we get it into California, you know who's going to be our priority here, right?
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
But wait, you guys must have so many barrels of umeshu.
We do. We have a lot of barrels of umeshu. I probably, like Dave said, probably over 100. And
I think it's about just under 100 right
now. Okay.
It's amazing how few barrels you actually make with thousands of pounds of fruit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the other side of it is we don't, when the infusion is done, we don't actually press anything off from it. We take all that fruit that's then swollen with a mixture of its own juices and shochu. We pitch it into the still. You want to talk about something that's got a magical flavor profile. Usually things that flow out of the still have absolutely zero sense of acidity to them. the distillate that comes from the umeshu and the ume gin.
That's for you.
Thanks. Little extra. Is just, it's so bright and so incredible. It's the closest thing that I can compare it to is an eau de vie that you can't find in the States because we don't grow Mirabelle, but Mirabelle is a European plum that is so floral and so beautiful, and this stuff totally reminds me of that. So Chris Lane, if you're still out there watching, you know, apologies for not being anywhere near as good as you at doing this. But then nobody is. I miss you behind the stick, Chris. That's not just the double barrel fizz talking, or the new guy spritz, or the grass cutter, or any of the other wonderful inventions that you come up with.
Chris says, "Jigger your soda, knuckleheads."
Oh, dang it. What did he say? Knuckleheads plural?
Plural.
Because Dave's the one making the drink. Just saying. You learned that from Chris. Even to the sort of, yeah, thank you. The
aristocrats.
The aristocrats. Yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers to you all.
Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So wait, you're having the baller highball right now, or are you doing the shochu highball?
Baller highball.
Baller highball.
We've
And
got
what
a
are
long
your
drive.
ratios?
Ratios.
Dave, what are your ratios?
You know, generally, the old shop highball was, I believe, 1.5 ounces of baller to 4 ounces of club soda, and then just basically the sort of twist of lemon over top and discard the peel because you don't want to distract from the cocktail. Chris,
That's how
feel free
choking
to
accidents happen, actually.
Chris, feel free to correct me on that. I know for Lance, generally it's about 3 ounces of baller and about 2 ounces of club soda.
Just a wave of club soda.
Yeah, just a whisper of club soda over the top.
Yeah. Just enough to tickle the fuzz. Yeah, thanks.
Just for the spritz.
Just for the spritz. Does anybody have any questions, any like really difficult questions or anything like political or trivia related
That's a good
or
idea.
yeah, religious?
I actually have a question about the label. I wanted to know a little bit more about that because it's really cool.
Thank you.
That's a great question.
That's a fantastic question. So for the label, we were able to go back to an old friend of the distillery, a woman named Sylvia Solacek Walters, who is a watercolor artist as well as a woodcut artist, and had put together a concept.
Sorry, just a quick note. Not just an old friend. She did literally the first labels for St. George Spirits for York.
Lean forward. I was going to get to that. You know, we each have our own pacing for a story, Dave. Anyway, yes, she did some of the original labels for St. George Spirits. She did watercolor illustrations for of each of the different types of fruit that went into the original products that St. George was making. She's immensely talented. She's a wonderful human being.
It's weird that she still talks to us.
Begrudgingly.
Yeah.
She doesn't do it enthusiastically. And anyway, I asked her if she knew anybody who could do an illustration for us that would emulate ukiyo-e to be able to do this. I said I wanted to do an illustration of St. George, not as an English knight, but as a Japanese samurai. And he's protecting a barrel instead of a virgin from a dragon. And she said, "Oh, I can do it." And I said, "No, you're too busy. We can't afford you, etc." And she said, "I'll do it. Just shut up. Come back to me in 2 days and I'll have a sketch for you." I showed up and she had 4 sketches with different color studies. I liked the one with the dark, deep nighttime background. And I said, "That's the one I like." She said, "Great. Come back in a week. I'll have a painting for you." Lo and behold, there it was. And she did an amazing job. I don't remember exactly where we tracked down the calligraphy artist to do the kanji. But he did an amazing job. He was a master calligrapher that did several sets for us, and we chose the one that we liked the best. Can you guys read that? You read the kanji? It's single malt St. George and made in California. And then the chop is our own in-house design
On the back.
for a chop. Yeah,
On the
there's a
back.
bigger chop on the back.
I love that chop.
Me too. It's the only tattoo for me. One day, someday. Anyway.
And
Other
then how
question.
about the California Shochu one?
Oh yeah, so the California Shochu. So at the time that Ramen Shop first opened, there was a young woman that worked here at the distillery who had designed the initial menus for Ramen Shop. Her name's Lauren Asta. She worked in our tasting room for a while and then realized that that it was too small of a cage for her and bust out. And now she's doing massive murals all over the world. She does incredible work. But I told her that what we wanted was sort of a mashup between the Japanese flag and the California flag. So the California bear crossing the rising sun was what we ended up with on this. The bear is wearing a cowbell because you don't want that bear to sneak up on you, right? And then he's saying, can you read what he's saying? Can anybody read that and actually translate it?
No, I can't read that.
Okay, that's it. Well, that's
It says
perfect.
Bear, what's the, I can't read the, a bear's.
You need me to.
Calling?
Necessities.
Bare necessities? No. Bare
Oh,
naked ladies? No. It's what's that?
Mad.
Bad. Yeah. So it's a very good. So sorry, I'm not trying to drag that out. That was ridiculous. I should have just said angry bear sound. I wanted it to feel like it was just a really shitty translation, and so angry bear sound is what I wanted it to say, and so it says angry bear sound.
Well, and there's a piece of it for all of this. We really love and are passionate about the liquid that goes into these bottles, and then there's kind of a goofiness. There's something about this that's also we're wonderfully fortunate to get to do what we do, and I think we want to celebrate that. And the labels are an opportunity to reflect that sort of joy and silliness.
The fact that we're just having a good time.
Seriously.
Yeah. So sorry. I'm sorry.
With angry bear sound, I love it. Chris Lane says bear growl. That's a good one.
Yeah. One of my favorite TV personalities, Bear Grylls, outdoorsman extraordinaire. Big shout out, Bear Grylls.
We have a question from Ken. Do these products go to Japan?
They don't have passports yet, so they haven't. No, there are some of them that have ended up there, but they've been smuggled. We don't have an importer in Japan as yet.
It's actually one of the kind of like the greatest honors for something when you find your product has been smuggled overseas to another country and you're excited and sort of dismayed by it at the same time.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of bars in Tokyo where I've had some of our products. Surprisingly, it was the terroir and the botanivore. Yeah, but yeah, we do not currently have distribution in Japan. And for right now on these two products, it's a little bit more difficult because of the baller is less limited than it used to be. But we want to make sure that before it leaves the country, we take care of everybody who's here. I'm excited to see it go out of the country, but I don't want our collective ego here to get in the way of people who are stateside having the product when they want it, especially when there are a lot of people overseas in multiple countries that don't know what it is, and so they don't know what they're missing yet. So the people that do know what they'd be missing, we don't want to make them angry. So,
I mean, it's one of the things I mean, you started here again 25 years ago, but it was to make single malt, and it wasn't single malt that was going to be so precious that it was sort of stashed away in someone's closet to be basically like a stock certificate or a bond. It was to make single malt. If you want to be able to share it with your
or a
friends
Star
and
Wars
family.
action figure.
Oh, well, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But you want to be able to share with your friends and family. The greatest, I mean, the joy of this is to be able to actually see and experience, and it's where these Zooms are wonderful. But we really love to actually see people drink our products, enjoy it, and really sort of celebrate life with it.
Yeah. How many of you are out there right now? Raise your hands. Wait, I can't see you. Never mind. I want all of you in here at some point to just be able to raise a glass with us and drink together, because this is not just about selling bottles. It's about that communal sense that you get when you're drinking something with someone. So if we could arrange something, you guys, where everybody who's on this Zoom call can, when we're all comfortable, not being socially distant, but being socially embracing of one another, we can all come in here and raise a glass together and have a drink together. That'd feel really special.
We love that.
With
Cool.
Gavin.
With Gavin. Yeah.
No Gavin.
And Chris Lane.
And wait, no, hold on.
You never see the two of them together.
And it's weird that we
Are
never
they
see
the
the two
same
of them
guy?
together.
Yeah, the hair is so similar. I think he just put streaks of gray in it to become Gavin.
I was gonna say streaks of gray should be Chris.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Brendan says, thanks for getting it to DC. So that's exciting that Brandon was able to get some, because we're not allowed to ship it out of state.
It's a pleasure getting it out there.
DC is actually a great market for spirits in terms of just it's a lawless place.
Ian's, here's a question for you guys. For the California Shochu, is the Koji inoculated onto the sake kasu as well? Is this done in a separate stage and then kasu added as well in a second stage, or is it a 100% Koji kasu fermentation?
So all of the process of inoculating the rice with the Koji and the co-fermentation between the Koji and the yeast takes place at Takara. And then after it's settled and pressed off, the pressed kasu comes to us. We rehydrate that and then put that into the stills and distill it off.
Great question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So you don't handle the Koji?
Not anymore. We have done some stuff with Koji for a while and we loved it. The problem is that with the volumes that we would be dealing with here, we'd need to have a whole other temperature controlled section to the distillery, to temperature and humidity controlled, to make sure that the Koji goes the right way. And if we could attach Dave's phone to a drone and fly it around in here, you'd see that in spite of the fact that we have the blessing of 65,000 square feet of space, we're out of room here. We've got a lot of barrels taking up space in this place, and so we don't have the room to have our own Koji fermentation room. So
you should describe what the Koji fermentation was like. I mean, basically those sort of like those beds that you had.
Yeah, well, I was talking about it briefly with the inoculation of the Koji spores onto the rice, but basically what takes place is the rice is steamed, and then it's combed essentially to be able to form these peaks and troughs for more surface area for a given container size. And then there's a special dispersing tool to be able to disperse the Koji spores on top of that. And then it sits in a room. They've got a couple rooms. They had one that was this really beautiful old antique cedar room that they were using for a long time. I don't believe that they use that any longer. Now it's a stainless room with temperature and humidity control to be able to do that. But just a day after those spores go on, you see these tiny white filaments that are starting to spread throughout the whole thing. And then before it starts to spore again, that's all collected and put into, and it's typically rotated a bit as well to avoid hot spots in the rice, because you don't want the Koji to get too warm and die off. And then that's all sent off into the tanks with water and with yeast.
Had you had awamori before, you guys? I mean, I was really surprised that this is yellow Koji. I thought that it was black Koji just because it's so like robust and kind of it's earthy and a little bit chocolatey and has these like soy sauce notes that remind me of awamori, which is made from long grain Thai rice in Okinawa. And I was, it reminds me more of awamori than the standard rice shochu that you would get in Japan.
Yeah, Keiko, I think that's because of the extreme concentration of it. I think we're actually fortunate to be able to work with Takara to have the sake kasu, because that kasu is a really, really intense version of all that. I think if you start to thin that out it will probably have less of that awamori sort of character to it, but we love having that huge punch of character going on there. Say battery on the phone. Okay, where are we at? 10%?
We're cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Sorry, we're just we're having some technical pre-difficulties right now because we're about to lose the battery on Dave's phone, but I know that we're cruising in on the end. Does anybody have first of all, is everybody okay out there? Because I don't want to use the last 10% of Dave's battery just blathering on about inane things if there's somebody that needs our help. Okay, no, nobody needs our help. Okay, does anybody have any questions that we can blather on inanely about that?
We have a question about food pairings for baller.
Ooh, okay.
Did you guys hear the part about ramen?
Yeah, so that's kind of a gimme. That's like saying take the green chili and make a Bloody Mary. I'll tell you one that's one of my favorites. That's really, really great. Have you ever had a churro that you dipped in a foie gras mousse? Ooh. Churros, foie gras mousse, and baller. It is a truly baller experience.
Baller move, yeah.
Yeah, it's the way to go. I think you'd really like that.
I would have to put out think about like some hard aged cheeses with baller. I think they'd be super happy together. So aged Parmesan, you know, like a Manchego, just something that's sort of already has a little bit of that sort of nuttiness and just would be sort of salty. And
yeah, Gouda would be really nice too with that. Ooh. Yeah, yeah, and Mimolette.
I would. You want to pair that with everything.
For a nice Wensleydale. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I do tend to love Mimolette, but that would be really good with it too. I think those are a couple of good pairings. You want more? So I'd have to make them up at this point. So
Chris says, aside from food pairings, if anyone wants to try the St. George Shochu as an oyuwari, meaning with hot water, just add 1.5 ounce in a mug and add 3 ounces of hot water to start. Continue as needed.
also served from a crab shell.
Yeah, these days need it a lot. One of the other things that I found that's a lot of fun is a deconstructed Nigrisaki. So you mix the shochu, and the proportions are I always just wing them, so I apologize for that. Do it yourself, wing it yourself, and it's totally cool. But rice milk, shochu, and maybe a bar spoon or so of pero de vie, and it becomes this really beautiful milky nigori sake. It's a deconstructed, reconstructed sake. That's what we call it.
That sounds amazing. Have you used a Koji for any of your other drinks at all?
Not any other drinks. We did do the we did the sweet potatoes. We did the soy sauce, and I did a pumpkin with a shiro kabocha, the white pumpkin, and that was pretty tasty. But that's been about it. So I saw something on the interwebs the other day. There's it's only available in Japan, but Porfirio Tequila makes an agave shochu that's 24% alcohol, and I'm assuming they're using a Koji to be able to convert the inulins in that into fermentable sugars. I'm dying to try that. It's not available here. It's not available in Europe. It's only available in Japan. So once travel opens back up again, I smell a trip on the horizon.
November.
Yep. For Japan?
Yep.
Damn, that's too long to wait.
We just got a whiskey in from Japan that's aged 8 years that uses Koji to saccharify the grains. And so they're calling it a Koji whiskey.
That's how many bottles do you have?
We'll definitely get you one of those because we definitely want you to try it.
Thank you. Yeah, put one aside. I'll come in and buy it.
It's delicious. Yeah.
It won't be for a week and a half because I'm going out of town on Monday. So
I'll go by and buy it, and then I'll promise to leave you some.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
But yeah, it's always so awesome to see you playing with Koji. What about your soy sauces? Are you still making soy sauce?
Oh no, I need to, because I loved making it and I loved having it. It was so weird and so good. There were two people besides me that loved it. Dave's wife Julia.
She stands by that. It's probably her favorite thing that's ever come out of this shop. And keep in mind, I made her a gin for our wedding. So your soy sauce is better than the gin.
Trump your
Yeah.
gin. Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Sorry. And James from Komi.
Oh yeah.
Really appreciated the funk on it. So, but I love making it. And again, you know, the sort of the core of who we are here at the distillery, all of us that work here, we do what we do because we love making stuff, and we love making it because we love sharing it with people. And so, I'll get back to it. I just haven't really had the opportunity to do it. Things have been pretty busy around here, and it does take takes tending. You know, the first couple of months, you got to stir it every day. That's even weekends. It doesn't want to take the weekends off. And then after that, you have to stir it every week. And I want to go at least a couple of years on it. The one that we tried together was a year old, I think, at least. So. Yeah, I definitely want to do it again.
It's a good project to fire up the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great project, I think. Anyone else have questions?
I think we have one last question, which I think is good for looking ahead and asking what's on the horizon. But Ian asks, any burning desires?
Oh my goodness, I have so many burning desires. Yeah, sorry. I wish I could have said that with the Harvey Firestein voice. Yeah, the burning desire to really right now, the only thing that I've been able to think about, and I'll let you answer for yourself, but is again, just being able to be with everybody. I miss the world right now. I miss sharing bites of food at restaurants with strangers. I miss passing my cocktail over to somebody that I just met at the bar and saying, you got to try this, it's amazing. I miss the world not being the communal place that it once was. That's my burning desire, is for things to come back to that. Anything else is just chump change compared to that, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think it's been such a challenging time for everyone, and so all those little pieces of interaction that make us all human, that's the thing that we miss, and we've been sort of everyone's been forced to isolate in different ways. And right now, I think we're feeling really grateful. You know, our team's safe, our families are safe. We're really fortunate to be able to have that, and we're just looking forward to being able to connect with people on a really visceral and genuine level again, where it's not completely driven by technology.
Yeah. Don't get us wrong. This is nice, but we miss the warmth.
It's why this is essentially the amuse bouche. This is the prelude to actually having you all come out to visit us and do it the right way.
Yeah. The wonderful Vanessa is holding the camera right now for us, and she is the proxy for all of you, and she's reacting for us so that we can feel like we're not just talking to a telephone. And see, she just dropped her mask so that she could smile to make us feel good. So you have a great proxy out there in Vanessa. So
yeah,
anyway,
we actually got earlier in the call, we got a nice gimbal, Miss Cameraman comment. So
awesome.
So it's not lost on us that there's somebody working the camera, and it looks really great, and it's nice that we were able to move around.
I would say, I know, not professional, but great. You get that.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Can't wait for the slow gin. It's the slow umeshu gin. It was going to be amazing.
And before it's out there with a label on it, I expect both you, Keiko, and Yoko, and maybe even Chris Lane to come in here and try. Yeah, you know.
Okay, all right. No, it's fine.
He's a good guy. It's in our charter.
We don't kill good guys. He's in our charter. It's in our charter.
Yeah. So look forward to having you here. And then again, hold me to the other part where we're all, every single one of us, all 12 of you out there, we're all in here having a cocktail together at some point. So yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, all of you. Yeah, kampai, and love you guys all. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you.